Yo, what's up? Welcome in Opening Line. Corey and Benny coming at you on a Thursday. Getting ready, getting closer and closer to the weekend. What's the deal, Benny?
Yeah, not too much. I cooled off a little bit last night from the hot streak. Didn't hit the home run from Muncy. The Red Sox lost for me. Luckily, the Dodgers, after the rain delay, wound up covering their 5.5. So at least I made a little bit of money back to, kind of stem the losses a little bit yesterday. But
did Bellinger hit a home run yesterday?
I don't think he did. There was somebody hit a home run in that game, but I don't think it was Bellinger. I want to say it might have been Turner. I think it was Justin Turner who went yard.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Well, you still got tonight. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you know what? It was a good run for a couple days. I mean, you're not going to win 100% of your bets every day. You know what I mean? So if you have that a couple days in a row, build up a little bit of a bankroll. Gave a little bit back last night, but didn't go crazy. So still well up for the week. So I'm not complaining.
Freeze and Turner hit home runs yesterday as the Dodgers beat up on the Phils. Yo, this is looking like, knock on wood, this is starting to feel like Yankees-Dodgers.
I mean, yeah, so far. I don't get too excited or start looking too far ahead until after the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, Robbie Ray pitched last night, pitched pretty well for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's a guy who basically has been, on the trading block. So last night was kind of his audition for all these teams that are looking to trade for him. I really feel, I told you this the other day. To me, the Dodgers offense is legit. Their biggest problem is their pitching, which is normally their strength, I think is a little bit weaker this year than it's been in years past. And the Yankees kind of have the same problem as with pitching. I mean, when you get into the playoffs and you're going down into a 3- and 4-man rotation, if you have studs at the top of your rotation, that's usually enough for you to, win a couple games and move on. I don't really see the studs. Like, who's the stud pitcher on the Yankees that you're going to be afraid of if you're one of these other top 4 or 5 teams in the league? I don't really see it here. So I think that's the same problem that the Dodgers have now too. Kershaw's not the Kershaw he used to be. Buehler hasn't progressed in the second year like they wanted him to. Maeda's getting hit around a little bit. A guy like Stripling, who they had as a solid starter last year, has been hurt and hasn't really rounded into it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where some of these arms that are available end up, because they could have a big impact on who winds up winning the World Series this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's obviously this is a very important time of year. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to upgrading your rosters to make that run, if you want to try to go ahead and take in and knock down that pennant, you know what I'm saying, Benny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this is it. But honestly, the Dodgers offense and the Yankees offense, from top to bottom, both of these teams, there's not like a weak hitter in either one of these offenses. These are teams, and this being a year where a lot of runs are getting scored, a lot of home runs are getting hit, these are teams from top to bottom that can just pound out 7, 8, 10 runs in a game and just, beat you that way, even with crappy pitching.
Yeah, no doubt. So should be fun as we go down the stretch. It was something else that it caught my eye that was interesting yesterday. Well, a lot of crazy. Yesterday was just a wild day. You know what I'm saying? Yesterday was just a wild day. I think I'm gonna stay inside today, Benny.
Heat, man. When it starts getting hot, you get those heat waves coming around. People start acting crazy.
Man, it rained crazy last night. It rained like unbelievable. You know what I'm saying? So that was interesting. All right, Benny, let's talk a couple handcuffs as we get ready for fantasy football season. FantasyGuru.com already up and running. Draft kit is already lit. We did a podcast yesterday with our boy Russell Clay, so you can go check that out. Should be in the draft kit today. Darrell Henderson is the rookie running back on Los Angeles Rams that everybody's projecting to be the handcuff for Todd Gurley, because he's there, and everybody's also projecting to be Todd Gurley to be dealing with a bulky knee this year.
Yeah, that's what everyone's projecting, but is that really the way? They do still have Malcolm Brown, right? They brought him back last year too. He was the guy who was kind of the backup last season. The other thing too is, so everybody thinks that Gurley's knee is going to lead to Gurley getting less carries, right? So maybe that's the case. Maybe Gurley does wind up getting less work. But doesn't that kind of help with the knee being there? Gurley's still the main running back there, you know? Like, they're still going to use Gurley as much as they can, especially in close games and games that they really need him. You know, I think everyone's just kind of banking on a Todd Gurley injury here. Like, if Gurley is the main back, like, 'cause the thing people need to understand is, like, Gurley was a guy who was getting 80-90% of the snaps before he was hurt.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, and Maurice Jones-Drew actually said this, and it makes a lot of sense to me, is Gurley's touches aren't going to get affected as much as his snaps are. Okay. Meaning that, you know, maybe he goes down to 65-70% of the snaps from 80 or 90% of them, but his touches are still going to be pretty close. So instead of, you know, 20 to 25 touches a game, maybe it's 18 to 22. He said that for the most part, a lot of those plays where he's a decoy or he's in there blocking or things like that are going to be the plays that they kind of keep him off the field. But when he's on the field, he's going to be one of those guys that gets a high touch rate per snap for when he's out there on the field.
Have we seen the best of Todd Gurley?
Unfortunately, I think so.
That's wild, right?
It is. I mean, because he's still a young guy. He's only like 25, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You know, but again, he was another guy that came into the league with this injury, right? This is something that happened to him in college.
Man, I mean, his leg basically was flipped the other side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so we always talk about it. I mean, when guys come in with injury history, they break down faster, especially at the running back position, you know? I mean, goes back to the whole argument that's going on now with all these guys wanting to get paid. You know, teams don't want to pay these running backs because the wear and tear that is put on these running backs. You're not going to get, you know, major years of these running backs at 100% capacity, and that's why teams don't want to pay them. And we're starting to see part of that come through now with Todd Gurley. Listen, once you have a little knock like this, it's not going to get better, right? Like, the only thing that's, you know, it's just going to consistently get worse and worse and worse and weaker and weaker and weaker until it gets to the point where you can't play. Does that mean that Todd Gurley can't still be productive for another couple years? Absolutely not. But, you know, he's not going to be the Todd Gurley we saw, you know, number one overall running back in the league. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Another handcuff that I find interesting is Rashad Penny from the Seattle Seahawks. He might start over Chris Carson, to be honest with you. But obviously, if something was to happen to Chris Carson, Penny is that guy. I like Penny a lot this year, Benny. I think Penny is going to have an opportunity to get a big share in that backfield, and I think he's going to be very fantasy relevant this year.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have shares of both guys on different teams that I've done already so far. I think Carson is the leader in the clubhouse. But even if you're just listening to the talk that's coming out of Seattle, they're basically saying that they're going to try to get both guys involved. And it's going to be one of those kind of ride the hot hand theories.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about this last year with Seattle too. You're going to get Carson, and he's going to have some big games. But I also think you're going to get Penny, who has some big games. And if either one of those guys get hurt, the other guy is going to become, you know, that much more important to the team. So I wouldn't doubt that you get big games this year from Carson and Penny at different points during the season, you know, based on injury, based on matchup, based on who's running better at the time. I don't mind having shares of either one of them. I prefer Carson. Carson was very, very good last year. People don't realize how good this guy was. If you go back and look at the numbers, the games that he played, he was consistently putting up, you know, 70, 80, 100 yards rushing, and doing it on a lot of carries as well. But again, Penny is a guy who they like. Penny was supposed to be the starter last year. You know, there were people at the beginning of the season that were hyping this guy up as, like, you know, the sleeper of last year's draft. So I think both guys have the talent to get it done. It really is going to come down to the opportunity. Carson should be going before Penny because I think Carson gets first crack at it. But I think both guys are going to be fantasy relevant during the year.
Yeah, I would put my draft capital a little bit more in Penny, but I wouldn't mind a share or two of Carson also. Carlos Hyde, if something happens to my guy, Damian Williams, Carlos Hyde can play. It's just he's been in situations where, you know what, it's always been like, it's like there's always something that's blocking him, whether it's coaching, whether it's injury, whether it's a guy that's already there. But I think Hyde can play, but Damian Williams is the lead dog here. But if something was to happen to Damian Williams, Carlos Hyde can be in the RB1 conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, if I just said to you right off the bat, you know, Kansas City running back, didn't give you a name, just said Kansas City running back, It's like Pittsburgh running back. Like Kansas City running back is a position you want to have a piece of because of the high pace of that offense, the fact that they're probably going to be ahead in a lot of games.
And you read
whoever, yeah, whoever ends up as that running back is going to be a guy that's good. Now, again, we're talking handcuffs here, so you're going to need an injury probably to Damian Williams because I do think it's Damian Williams' job, and Carlos Hyde is the secondary piece, the insurance. But if Williams goes down, Hyde goes from being a guy that you drafted, RB 35, RB 40, to a guy that could be a potential top 10 RBI, a top 10 running back week after week.
Yeah, I'm on Carlos Hyde, especially the Damian Williams guy. I'm definitely with Carlos Hyde. Mm-hmm. I like to bring, on social media, going through Twitter and stuff like that, it can be a cesspool, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes you find some good information when you're not looking at FAAB and shit like that, you know what I mean? Michael Salfino was talking down on Damian Williams. And he was like, why are people drafting this guy as a top running back when he basically has no draft pedigree? He's a guy that's bounced around, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Really gotten it done consistently. He's like, when you look at the talent of Williams, that there's really nothing to see here, more or less. Do you give any credence to that?
I mean, a little bit, but not, I don't think that he's a guy that – put it this way. He's the Kansas City Chiefs running back. I mean, we just kind of had this conversation a minute ago with Carlos Hyde. Whoever the Kansas City Chiefs running back is going to be somebody that's going to get a lot of opportunity and have a chance to put up fantasy points. Everything I'm seeing right now says he's the clear-cut number one running back too. Like, Hyde is well distant in the second as his guy behind him. Hyde is only going to really be fantasy relevant if Williams winds up getting hurt. So to me, I don't think that's a knock on him. Like, yes, he came from nowhere. Well, there's a lot of guys that came from nowhere. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys that were, not high draft picks that wound up being very good NFL players. I mean, Tom Brady's the big example that everybody uses, but, you can find undrafted guys, 5th, 6th rounders that turn out to be okay. I don't really see that there's a knock on Damian Williams. He's fine.
Yeah, Tony Romo.
Yeah, Tony Romo undrafted, and look at him. He had a better career than Ryan Leaf, who went number 2 overall, and people were debating whether he should be picked over Peyton.
I'll never forget those debates. This guy is going to give you 100 yards from scrimmage, just about every week.
In that offense, absolutely. And the thing is, if he gets hurt, Carlos Hyde is going to give you about 100 yards from scrimmage every week too, playing the exact same role, which is why I think Hyde's a very good handcuff.
We are basically, with this guy, what we're doing is we're playing – it doesn't make a difference. You can put player 2 on his back. It don't have to be Damian Williams. It can be like player 2. And I'm drafting player 2 because of where player 2 is at and what he does. You know what I'm saying? Giovanni Bernard for Joe Mixon.
I mean, he's a good handcuff, and he'll see a little bit of the passing down work, but, he is what he is. I mean, even when we saw Giovanni Bernard Giovanni Bernard came in the league, he was a first-round pick, University of North Carolina. The thing I think – what happened?
Tar Heel, yep. Yeah,
he's a Tar Heel. The thing I think everybody realized pretty quickly about Gio Bernard, though, is he's not a lead back. Like, he is more of your – I hate the term third down back because teams are starting to pass a lot more in early downs, but he's like the prototypical third down back where, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. You want him running sweeps to the outside and getting him open in kind of space and stuff like that. But he's not the guy you want to give 20 carries to or 15 carries to a game. He's not the guy you really want running through the tackles all the time.
One thing I will say about him is that at some point in the season, if you're a Giovanni Bernard owner, he'll be in your lineup. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Giovanni Bernard seems to find a way to get a week or 2 in the starting rotation. Another guy on this team, and this is totally random, is Travion Williams. He's a rookie, right? Mm-hmm. You watch Friday Night Tykes when he used to come on?
No, I didn't. Was he one of the kids from there?
I feel like it was a running back, but that kid may have been Travion Johnson. But this guy right here, Travion Williams, he went to Texas A&M, and this is the year that they were in Houston. And I'm thinking, man, that kid was unbelievable as a youth football player. Um, but this may not be him. I think that kid may have been named Travion Johnson. This kid is Travion Williams. And then I'm like, that kid would have been. He shouldn't have grown up that fast. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it was a show about like the youth football and
yeah. No, I remember the show. I didn't watch it all that much, but I remember it.
Benny, these kids, 19 years old, was getting concussions, yo.
Honestly, I mean, if my kid wanted to play football, I would probably let him, but I'm not upset that he doesn't like football.
Yeah, I mean, like, they was having injuries. They was having injuries, Benny, like broken arms, concussions. One kid had a concussion in back-to-back weeks.
So a bunch of the Pee Wee football started in my town already. So, like, if you wanted to be – if you want to play Pee Wee football, you're like kids. My son is 10, so like kids that are his age, some of his friends play. They're practicing now in like 90-degree heat down at the because he had baseball camp down there 2 weeks ago, and we were down there for baseball camp. And after the baseball camp, the football kids came on to do their workouts and stuff like that. I don't know, man. 9 or 10 years old, hanging out with pads in the summer on a football field for an hour or two. I'm kind of glad my kid doesn't want to play football because that is not the way I want him spending his summer.
No, Benny, it's a mind. It's a certain mind. Like, that's not for everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's not for everybody.
Agreed.
It's that's something that's inside of you in your head that makes you able to do that. You know what I'm saying? And that's not everybody's. Even kids, even as you got some, like my son likes the sport, whatever. We took him out there. After the end of the first practice, he was like, "Daddy, I don't want to do this no more." I was like, "I know." You know what I'm saying? I was like, "I know." You know what I'm saying?
Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm all for the kids being outside in the summer, right? Like, again, my kid was at baseball camp. He's doing a basketball camp this week. Like, I want him out there doing stuff, but I want him out there doing stuff that he wants to be doing and, like, that is fun. Like, baseball and basketball camp, like, it's fun. You're hitting balls, you're running and getting it. Like, football camp is legit work. Like, they're like, they're doing drills and they're doing slide drills and they're like doing push-ups and lifting weights and running. Like, it's again, when the high school kids are doing it, I get it. But these are 10-year-old kids.
Yeah, some of the youth football coaches I don't trust either. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be careful with that. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of good programs out there. The dudes in Houston, they run top-notch program. You know what I'm saying? With trainers and medical staff, and obviously Snoop and his whole people. And they run excellent staff. And those kids in South Florida, they might as well be college programs. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, yeah.
So, speaking of which, the dudes in South Florida, they played – Snoop's team was the second-ranked team in youth football, right? And like the 14 and under or 15 and under, they were ranked second, right? They flew from California to Miami to play Uncle Luke's team. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
This is 1 versus 2, Benny. The final score was 62-0.
Damn.
That's yes.
Damn.
When Snoop's team came onto the field, his kids were like, "That's a college team." You know what I'm saying? They were like, "That's a college team over there," and they were like, "No, they're the same age as y'all." You know what I mean?
So that's why all these college coaches are living in South Florida right now trying to recruit these kids because, when you have nice weather, you can play all year round. And a lot of these kids play football all year round. And, that's what they do. And, I mean, that's why they're all so good. That's why you keep seeing all these guys making it to the NFL from, Miami-Dade area and right around there. That's, hotbed of football talent in South Florida.
I saw something. It's a 16-mile radius of South Florida has more players in the NFL than the state of Texas.
Which is crazy because when people talk about Friday Night Lights and all that stuff, you talk about Texas football. Yeah. And, you know what I found interesting that I didn't know? Because a lot of the schools are so small in Texas, a lot of schools in Texas don't even have like a legit 11-on-11 football team. Like they play a lot of 7-on-7 down there.
Oh, wow.
They don't even have enough kids. Yeah, and a lot of parts of Texas is very rural. Like, when you think Texas, Dallas, Houston, like the big places, yeah. But a lot of those smaller high schools around there, they play like 7-on-7. There are kids that get drafted, or shouldn't say drafted, kids that get scholarship to go to college, that's like the first time they're playing like legit 11-on-11 football.
That's wild, you know what I'm saying? Royce Freeman, handcuff. Some people think Roy Freeman might get a crack at taking this gig this year, too.
No. Dude, Philip Lindsay was good. The only way he gets the job is if Lindsay gets hurt. Okay. Lindsay was good last year. Lindsay was what everybody thought Freeman was going to be last year. And I know they invested a higher draft pick on Freeman, but you saw it on the field. Like, Lindsay is a dynamic player. You saw that on the field. Freeman's a jag. He's just a guy. He's just another running back out there. So unless he took a monumental leap in year 2, I don't see how he gets carries over Lindsay. It's Lindsay's job to –
Lindsay, I would even bank on Devontae Booker before Freeman.
Again, I'm not going to say no because I was not impressed with what I saw from Freeman. Again, I was a guy that had a little bit of Freeman last year. I drafted him in a couple places as like a RB3, RB4, and I wound up never using him because he didn't have any good games the whole season.
Dion Lewis.
I want to be in on Dion Lewis, but I don't think I can be. As a handcuff, maybe, but – you know, last year you kind of saw the shift, right? Like the two of them were basically 50-50. You know, it was Lewis getting all the passing work, Henry doing the running at the end of games, and then like in the middle of games where things mattered, it was kind of a 50-50 split. As the season went on, you kind of saw Dion Lewis drop off and Derrick Henry just basically become the guy. So other than as a handcuff, I don't really want Dion Lewis this year because I don't think he's going to do anything outside of an injury to Henry.
I would agree with you on that one, too. I don't think it's anything to see right there in that scenario, in that case. That's a couple of handcuffs that you can look at this upcoming season. It also give you some fantasy value if, you know, injuries and stuff like that. So fantasyguru.com breaks all that stuff down in the draft kit as we push towards fantasy football in 2019. It's going to be fun, hopefully. Hopefully so. You know what I mean, Benny? I plan on having a good season. I didn't have the best season last year, to be honest with you. I didn't win no money last year. I may have broke even, put it like that, yeah.
I mean, do you ever go in there hoping to have a bad season, though? I mean, I'm always hoping to have a good season whenever I go in there and, you know, see how –
season with no money, though. That's rare that I come out of the season with no money. You know what I mean? But don't get me wrong. I had a streak of 6 weeks where I was hitting parlays. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that kind of made up for it. But fantasy-wise, it didn't come in last year. I don't know why, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying?
To be honest, I feel the same. This is the way I feel about fantasy football, right? Is, you know, people always talk about, you know, oh, I got this guy in the first round, I got that guy in the first round. Like, your first-round draft pick is not the reason you win or lose a fantasy season.
Yes.
The reason you win or lose a fantasy season is the guys that you start drafting probably around, like, round 7 to like round 15, you know? And the thing is, Corey, like we all fall in love with our guys, right? Like the guys that you have that you're higher on, the guys that you're pulling up the board, the guys that you take in round 7 to 15 tend to wind up on a lot of your teams, at least in my opinion with the way I do it, because when I get into like the first couple rounds, it all depends on what draft pick I get, right? Like if I get 1, I'm taking Barkley. You know, if I get like 9, I'm probably going with a wide receiver in the first round and trying to double up on the turn. But once you get into like round 7 through round 15, you have the same targets in those rounds because there are certain guys that you're high on and certain guys that you're not high on, and you always try to go to get your guys. So what I find is when my guys in round like 7 through 15 wind up having good seasons, I wind up crushing fantasy football because now I got the guys in the first 6 rounds, everybody's first 5 or 6 round draft picks are going to produce. That's why they're top 5 or 6 round draft picks. But when you're getting that production from 7 to 15, when you hit on, you know, like you're a big Matt Ryan guy this year. If Matt Ryan ends up as QB2 or QB3, you're going to have profit because you took him, you know, on a lot of teams at a certain point in the draft. You know, if you're high on like Dante Moncrief we talked about. Like if Moncrief's one of those guys you're targeting around 12, 13, and you get him on 3 or 4 of your teams and Moncrief has a big year, you just got great value from a 12th round wide receiver. All those other teams that you have Moncrief on are going to be good because he's now a guy that you could plug in there along with your, you know, Odell Beckhams and whoever you took in the first round and your Thielens and Diggs and guys that you got in that 3rd or 4th round. So when you're 7th to 15th round picks, I tend to have fantasy football seasons where I'm competing for championships in like every league I'm in, or I'm basically not competing for championships because all those guys miss. So I think it's very hit or miss like that.
And I agree with you, Benny. a player. My biggest mistake last year came early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
It came in week 1, the first waiver wire run. You know what I'm saying? I never forget. Me and my brother-in-law was talking about this the other day, as a matter of fact, because we was contemplating if we were going to do the GST this year. I think I'll be out of town that weekend, and then he was like, he maybe have a conference or something like that too.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, yeah, you know what? Apologize for what happened last year. And I was like, hey, it is what it is. Had a 3rd pick in the draft. And I was like, we should get Ezekiel Elliott. And he was like, we should take Le'Veon Bell. And I said to him, I worry about Le'Veon Bell sitting out the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I don't think he's going to sit out the whole season. We drafted Le'Veon Bell. We didn't get James Conner. You know what I'm saying? And the rest is kind of history.
Yep.
Well, not history. Here's what happened. When I realized that this Le'Veon Bell thing might be a problem, you know, a couple of injuries was tough on me last year too. Geronimo Allison, Cooper Kupp, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Cooper Kupp hurt me last year. He was one of my guys. I had him everywhere.
The Andrew Luck, Ryan Fitzpatrick thing, I was missing on that, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
As far as, you know, making the starting decision on the quarterback. That's why I'm planning on doing a little bit more best ball this year.
Yep.
But one of the bigger things that happened with me was that first week, right? See, I play in NFFC. I play in very competitive leagues like the GST. And then I'll have like a lot of my FFWC leagues. FFWC waiver wire run at 9 o'clock, at 9 p.m. East.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look, and so I have basically a cheat sheet for my NFFC waiver run. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They're the same players. You know what I mean? I'm sure it's just not me that does this. You know what I'm saying? So Phil Lindsay was coming in at around 275, 300. And I was like, that's kind of high for week 1, but I'm a Le'Veon Bell owner in a couple leagues. I got to get this running back. So I went up to like 330. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I thought that was a fair bid in week 1 for Phil Lindsay. 475, Benny.
I was gonna say there were a couple of leagues that I was in last year where he went for half the FAAB. He went for like $500.
475, and I'm like thinking to myself, look at this idiot paying $475 for Phil Lindsay.
Got a 1,000-yard back out of it, yeah.
So that hurt me. And then in my big NFFC auction, it was a combination of Luck and Fitzpatrick, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I started out with Luck. He was slow, remember, because he hadn't gained his arm strength back yet. He started the first month of the season, he didn't have his arm strength.
Yep.
So I ended up going to Fitzpatrick. When I went to Fitzpatrick, Luck started to get his arm strength up. You know what I'm saying? But the big one was when Fitzpatrick threw those 4 interceptions in the first half.
I remember that game.
They sat him at halftime.
Yep.
That Sunday, Andrew Luck threw 5 touchdown passes.
And he was on the bench.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then I got pissed off, cut Fitzpatrick, right?
That's when Jameis came back and stepped in.
Picked up Jameis, whatever. Luck goes into the starting lineup. Jameis gets hot. You know what I'm saying? Bench Andrew Luck, put Jameis in there. He throws 4 interceptions, gets benched at halftime, and Luck is having a 4-touchdown game.
Yep.
So that point differential right there kept me out the playoffs in a league that I paid $1,400 entry fee. You know what I'm saying? So you got to when you pay that kind of money to play, Benny, you got to make something back. Like, you just can't just give them $1,400. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened after that was, on auction day, my strategy was I was going to buy the cheap. I was going to pay for Devontae Adams, number 1. Right. That was my guy. If I don't care if it went up to $50-something, I was getting Devontae Adams. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to buy a wide receiver that I thought was low value. That guy happened to be Mike Evans. I bought Mike Evans for like $26. You know what I'm saying? Which was excellent.
Not bad. Yeah, not bad at all.
I was like, okay, being that I got these high-priced wide receivers, you know, I think I had Emmanuel Sanders maybe for like 19 or something like that. what I did was I said, okay, let me get the value at running back. It just so happened the value at running back was Devontae Freeman and LaShawn McCoy. And I just couldn't, you know what I'm saying? I couldn't make it up. You know what I mean?
I fell into the Freeman trap last year, too. I had Devontae Freeman on a couple teams, and that's what hurt a lot of my teams because he was a guy I took I was getting him in the third or fourth round last year. And I was like, that's too good a value on Devontae Freeman. And then his season just.
And then I also had Geronimo Allison's injury, Cooper Kupp's injury, and it kind of fell apart after that. You know what I mean? So there goes.
I tell people all the time, a lot of people get crazy about the draft. The draft is important, but in order to win your fantasy football league, you need to have a decent draft. You need to have very good injury luck. You need the guys on your team, especially the important pieces of your team, to stay healthy throughout the year. And then you need a little bit of waiver wire luck, meaning, there are weeks where there's two running backs that everybody's fighting for, and you get one, and then the other guy turns out to be Phil Lindsay, and the guy that you picked up turns out to be back on the bench 2 weeks from now. You need a little bit of that luck right there, too, that you get the right guy in those 50-50 situations. And when you put all that together, that's when you have one of those seasons where you're competing for the big money.
Exactly, and that's what it comes down to. But like you said, it doesn't work all the time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Phil Lindsay was a big piece last year. A lot of people that won championships last year had Phil Lindsay on their team.
Phil Lindsay and James Conner. Phil Lindsay and James Conner are on way more teams last year, based on the teams that made it far, because those are guys that you got. Again, it wasn't your first-round pick. It wasn't, you had to have this guy or that guy to win. You can win with any one of these first-round picks. The people who won last year picked up Philip Lindsay off the waiver wire and got James Conner as a 12th, 13th round pick before the whole Le'Veon Bell thing really blew up and went out that way. Those are the people that wound up winning a lot of fantasy leagues last year because of those two guys that were, again, later round kind of guys.
Let me ask you this, Benny. What do you feel about going through, say a Phil Lindsay situation happens again this year? Are you going to spend $500-$600 in FAAB in week one?
It comes down to my team, where the holes are, and if I have any injuries. So, here's an example. I had Devonta Freeman last year. So I was one of those people that put in a bid for $450 on Phil Lindsay and lost, which is why I know that he went for over 500 in some leagues. Because, again, to me, but I got to be honest, I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I don't feel comfortable throwing 40-50% of my FAAB at something on week one. But when you have a hole in your lineup that you need to fill, here's the other thing too, Corey, that I don't think people take into account. People always say, well, I want to save my money so I have money to spend later in the year. If you spend your money, if I spend $50 on Philip Lindsay in week one, I have Philip Lindsay for the next 16 weeks of the season.
Bingo. Yep.
If you wait until week 5 and then you start trying to pick and choose running backs so that you can fill a hole, you may wind up only spending $5 or $6 to get a guy, but you might spend $5 or $6 4 or 5 times throughout the rest of the season. So you're really spending the same $40 or $50 anyway that you should have just thrown up front,
I agree with you. And see, the thing about it is when it comes to FAAB, listen, I know cats that you'll get to the playoff weeks, and then, when the FAAB's supposed to shut down in most regular leagues, at least for the teams that are still in it, they can still run.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys have 30-40% of their FAAB left. When I get to week 13, Benny, let me tell you something, Jack. It's gone. It's like me at the strip club, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm all out.
I got $7 or $8 left, and if I really need something, I'm putting all of that $7 or $8 on the one thing I really need, hoping that the other guy, doesn't put it on there. But yeah, I'm the same mindset. You look at the Scott Fish Bowl that we're both in here. The first week of FAAB in the Scott Fish Bowl, most people blow their whole FAAB.
Yeah. Because
they're basically well, listen.
During training camp, so much happened. Look at Dak Prescott. You know what I'm saying? That was a nothing. Yeah. Nobody had any inkling of Dak Prescott. Then week one, you got to go get him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's going to be – again, last year with the Le'Veon Bell holdout situation, there's going to be people this year. Maybe we have something like that with Melvin Gordon. Maybe you have somebody who tears an ACL on a non-contact thing. They just go to make a cut and they drop down. Now you got a wide receiver that everybody was counting on that you got to fill in for. And the thing is, too, you also wind up getting that guy. I forget who it was that got hurt a couple years ago, but then Devontae Adams stepped into a starting role with Green Bay. Devontae Adams was going for 60-70% of people's FAAB in the Scott Fish Bowl because, all of a sudden it was like, whoa, he's going to be one of Aaron Rodgers' wide receivers all year long. Now that I forget who got hurt. I don't even remember at the time. Might have been like Jordy Nelson or something like that 2 or 3 years ago. But stuff like that happens, and you wind up getting, some of these guys and people that, I drafted heavy running backs and my wide receivers sucked. Well, that's your opportunity to make up for something like that when you have those situations.
Here's a situation, perfect example. Spencer Ware and Kareem Hunt. When Spencer Ware tore the ACL, Kareem Hunt became, you know what I'm saying? Kareem Hunt went from being like, okay, I like him a lot, to a second-round draft pick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He went from running back 20-ish, 30-ish even, to running back top 10,
Yeah, so that can happen. And obviously, fantasyguru.com will keep you abreast of all of those situations as we move through the offseason, especially if you sign up and register for the draft kit and the season-long package over at fantasyguru.com. A couple years ago, Benny, the one that sticks out the most was the Julius Thomas breakout. You know what I'm saying? In Denver.
Yep.
The catch that played in the FFPC, when that happened, and he had like those 3 explosive touchdown receptions in that first game.
I remember that. I was in Vegas for that. Week 1 in Vegas.
I was in Vegas for that too. How about that?
Yeah, the Roto Grinders thing or something was going on. It was one of the
I missed the Roto Grinders party, but yeah, I was in Vegas that same night. That same weekend.
It was the weekend of the FFWC draft too.
All that shit was going on that weekend. Was I with Tommy that weekend? Or was that the weekend I met Tommy? I met Tommy in Vegas.
Well, I put it this way. That was like, I want to say it was maybe 4 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was like 4 years. It might even been 5 years ago. We're getting old right now. We're getting old right now. But that was when DFS was like first bursting onto the scene. So everybody was there. Like basically, if you own a company in the DFS industry right now, like you were there. Like we were hanging, like CSU Ram was there hanging out. Obviously all the Roto Grinders guys there. Like you said, Tommy was there. I was out there. You were out there. I actually met the scout guys out there. And I actually met, you'll remember this, I actually met the Fantasy Aces guys out there for like the first time. The brothers. That was like the first time I met those guys was out there at that party.
No doubt. It's always a good time. I haven't done it in a couple of years, but I normally do it. I did it for 3-4 years in a row. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But that particular one, the cats in the FFPC, where they got a point and a half for the tight end, they went 997, 990, 950 for Julius Thomas in week 1. And you know what? It paid off.
Yeah. There's times where I've seen that pay off, Corey. There's also times where I've seen it blow up in people's faces.
I got one for you that blew up in people's faces. I know it like it's yesterday.
Go ahead.
Kevin Ogletree.
I don't even remember that one. But
3 touchdowns, Monday Night Football, week 1, 3 touchdowns versus the Giants.
And then he had 4 touchdowns on the season.
Exactly.
That always happens.
So, even, like I said, different ways you play this situation and stuff like that. So we got you covered over there at fantasyguru.com. Benny, what we got for baseball tonight?
It's kind of weird. We got a split slate for baseball today. There's like 4 games in the afternoon and then like 8 games at night. There's a lot of really good pitching on the mound, though. So, like, when I was looking through some of these games, I don't have a strong lean on a lot of them. Like, the night slate tonight is going to be a tough one for DFS. I'm not even sure how heavy I'm going to play. I might go light on it. The 2 things I like the best in the afternoon, I think the Royals are a lock to win that game. I know it sounds crazy to say the Royals are a lock, but I think the Royals are a lock to win that game, and I think the Red Sox are a lock to win that game with Chris Sale on the mound. Neither one of those games are up on the sportsbook. They don't have a line for either one of those games up yet on the sportsbook.
It might be raining. Might be rain.
Well, rain might be something to worry about too. But, again, last night we were worried about rain, and most of those games played. The Yankees being the only one that actually wound up raining out, as you said, because it was raining like cats and dogs in New York last night. But for the early slate, I'm looking at the Royals. I'm looking at the Red Sox. The Red Sox especially should crush today. So Red Sox team total, Red Sox. I wouldn't take the over in the game because I don't think Sale's going to give up a lot of runs. So you're really banking on the Red Sox doing it. But I do like the Red Sox team total and the Red Sox to win whenever that line comes out. At night, really, I don't have much that I'm looking for here. I like the over in the St. Louis-Cincinnati game. I think we'll get some runs in that game right there. For DFS, I especially like the lefties going up against Dakota Hudson. 385 Woba against left-handed bats for him. 10 home runs for lefties in 44 innings of work. So lefties against him would be good, although the Cincinnati lefties aren't great. I mean, you're looking at like Joey Votto, Jesse Winker, if Dietrich's in there. I can't play Scooter Gennett. He looks horrible at the plate right now as he comes back from injury. But that would be the kind of guys that you'd be looking at. I'll give you my favorite.
The best hit a home run odds out of that group is
Winker, Votto.
It's Suarez is at 260. Yasiel is at 270. Winker is at 330. Jeanette is at 390. Votto's at 480. Sinzel at 600.
I'll tell you what, Votto at 480 is worth a little stab.
Really?
That's a big number, yeah, because the lefties are really what you're looking at there. And I know Joey Votto hasn't been great this year, but, his numbers still, like, jump off the page against right-handed pitching. So at plus 480, I think there's enough value there to take a little stab on Votto, and I'll write that down. The guy who I like best, though, to hit a home run today, Corey, is actually Juan Soto.
Oh, we're going back to Juan Soto.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, it kind of sets up, like, he plays Julio Teheran in Atlanta, right? So Tehran's been a guy that's always sucked against left-handed bats, and Atlanta is a stadium that plays to left-handed hitters. So Soto just kind of he just profiles so well to be the guy there. I haven't looked yet at what his home run prop is, but he would be a guy I'd be looking to take a home run prop on again today too.
360 for Juan Soto over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. And anything for Prize Picks or those kind of analysis go hand in hand?
Well, I mean, Prize Picks, I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier here about I love the Red Sox today. I think Chris Sale's going to shut down Toronto. So I like taking the under on Vlad Guerrero. He's the only guy from Toronto that's in there. I don't expect Vlad to have a big game against Chris Sale. And then I do think that the Red Sox offense is going to beat up on Thomas Pannone, who is the guy who's pitching against them. Guy has over a 6 ERA. He's got a whip over 150. Really not a good pitcher there for Toronto. So you can take, I think, Mookie Betts and Michael Chavis are the two guys that they offer on Prize Picks in the Boston Red Sox. So I want the over on those Red Sox hitters, and I want the under on the hitters on Toronto facing Sale. So take the under on Vlad, take the over on Mookie Betts and Chavis. That's my Prize Picks 3x3 for today.
There you go, right there. Big piece of chicken, Benny. I'm giving mine to Baker Mayfield for making Giants fans so butthurt yesterday. You go, Baker.
Gotta love Baker Mayfield right there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give mine to the Dodgers offense again. Again, 3 days in a row, I rode them that entire series. Every single game of that series, they wound up going over their team total. Every single day of that series, they wound up making me some money. I try to tell people all the time with betting, when you're on a trend and that trend is hitting, you ride that trend until it dies or until something changes. So today, something changed because they're no longer in Philadelphia. So the whole idea of them getting the park bump and going up against a pitching staff that's bad against left-handed pitchers, the whole reason I like the Dodgers in that series to begin with is now changed. So it's no longer there. But hopped on the trend in game one, rode it in game two, rode it in game three. That's the reason why I have a bunch of money in my DraftKings sports betting account this week.
All right, there you go right there for my main man, Benny. I'm Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, the opening line. We are out.